Well, greetings and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Karls Spirits. Tonight, this is episode 56, and we're going to be looking at Chicken Cock, Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey. That's right, the famous old brand Chicken Cock. Now, I've been reading about this brand for about the past year. I have not been able to source it very readily, and I think it's starting to trickle into more local markets. I ran across this bottle on a fishing expedition last week, and I couldn't resist. I've heard pretty good things about it, and I thought I would check it out. So it's not real well known currently, but chicken cock actually has a very long lineage, and it was once really incredibly popular. This is not some cockamamie story that has been invented by the bourbon distillers. This is a real story coming up. And I even have a quote from someone sort of famous to kind of back that up. So originally, chicken cock was first introduced in 1856. That's about 10 years before Jack Daniels, the way I understand it. And it was introduced in Paris in Bourbon County, Kentucky, which is right down the road from Versailles. They say Versailles in Kentucky, not Versailles like they do in France. But Paris in Bourbon County, Kentucky. And it's going to remain really popular all the way up through Prohibition. And like many bourbons, Prohibition closed down the Paris distillery, but not the brand. The brand, in fact, relocated to Canada, where they continued to produce and then smuggle chicken cock into the country and into America, that is. And it actually became the favorite of socialites during the Prohibition, and in fact, really gained its notoriety as the house brand for the Cotton Club in New York. And of course, the Cotton Club was the famous jazz concert house in New York where you could listen to the likes of Louis Armstrong and Duke Ellington and Bessie Smith as they performed for an all-white audience that was made up of the upper New York crust. So can you imagine sipping on a glass of really prestigious bourbon at the time and listening to those jazz greats? It's got to be a really cool experience. And in fact, Duke Ellington himself once wrote about chicken cock. He said, everyone knew that bootleg whiskey was being served at the Cotton Club, but its clientele was so prestigious that the Cotton Club had become off limits to the police so long as the sales were very discreet. The whiskey that was usually purchased at the time was called chicken cock, and it was the bottle that came in a sealed can. And what he's actually referring to in that quote is that that's how they got it into the country. Distilled in Canada, they're going to put them in small bottles, and they're going to smuggle them into quart-sized tin cans. They're going to be brought into the country. You order a bottle of chicken cock at the Cotton Club. They're going to bring this sealed tin can to your table, and they're going to open it with a great deal of ceremony right in front of everybody. So you really got what you paid for. You could see that it was fresh out of the can, so to speak, and then into the bottle, and then into your glass. And so really became very, very popular. Prohibition ends, and chicken cock's future seems really bright. But just after World War II, a fire destroyed the distillery, and that was it. They're out of business. The brand lapsed, and in 2012, Grain and Barrel Spirits purchased the brand. They hired on a former master distiller with 40 years experience from Brown-Forman. They began to produce their own, and while waiting for their own to mature, they used MGP juice from Indiana. Now, what's in this particular bottle is not MGP. This is distilled, aged, and bottled right in Kentucky. How do I know that? Because it says Kentucky on the label. Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey. By law, only whiskey produced in Kentucky may be so labeled. So if this was from Indiana, from MGP, it could be called straight bourbon whiskey, but not Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey. All right, enough about the story, and on to the tasting. Mash bill for this is actually undisclosed. It's rumored to be about 70% corn, about 20% rye, and about 10% barley. So you're looking at a higher mash bill than what we normally find in a lot of bourbons. It is bottled at 90 proof, and there's also no age statement. I have not been able to really pin down a good age. Everything I have read today bounces from 4 years to about 8 years, so take your pick. Okay, in the glass and in the bottle, actually, it is very, very light. It is a very light bourbon. It's almost what I would call light honey. It's a very light honey appearance. It has medium, sticky legs. They really cling to the glass well. Classic nose, lots of oaks, lots of vanillas. It does have a dusty overtone to me. And it's got some corn notes. So I'm calling this a grain forward spirit. And there is a hint of ethanol. So a little bit of alcohol here on this. I would say on taste, it's also kind of light. Big notes of butterscotch, vanilla, and corn. They're really the predominant notes, especially in the middle of the palate. There is a hint of a sweet molasses right in the middle. And that rye really makes itself known right at the very back of your palate. The mouthfeel, I think, is particularly butter-like. It's almost like liquid butter. I would almost say it's like scampi butter, like you would get with the shrimp scampi type. It's a real rich, liquidy feel to it. The finish is shorter than I would expect. It is short. It's warm. It's dry and very crisp. And what I mean by that is it really evaporates off your tongue very quickly. And it's actually quite interesting because I think I've said this in previous videos. It gets your attention and makes you want to go back for another sip to try to identify what's kind of going on. It's not effervescent. That's not what I'm trying to say. It just seems to pop off your tongue very quickly, though. Evaporates off. And it's warm, but it doesn't get down into your chest. It just has a very crisp, quick finish. So my takeaway for chicken cock. This is a sipping bourbon, plain and simple. I don't think any of the notes are particularly outstanding. There's nothing in here that says wow to me. They're not particularly rare notes, but I think it's crafted really well. And these notes all mix well, I think, in the glass. I love the story. Being a history guy, I can't help but love the story. I mean, geez, sitting there listening to Louis Armstrong and Duke Ellington on stage while drinking a bourbon. That seems just like a awesome night out to me. But again, it's what's in the glass that's important. And I find it to be light. It's light in color. It's a little light on the taste. The finish is actually, to me, the finish and the nose, actually, to me, are the best parts of this. And I really think this is all indicative of age. I think it's closer to that 4-year mark than that 8-year mark. I'm very sure. Press releases say this is becoming nationwide. I did not get this locally, but my understanding is there's a bottle of it floating around locally right now. But it can be found for around the $50 mark. So I think that's a little steep for what this is. If this was a $30 bottle, this would be an awesome bottle. This would be a bottle that you would really like to just sit and savor for $30. At $50, it's a little on the steep side. So ultimately, Karl rating here. I'm going to go with a, I'm going to go with the 3.75. That's a 3.75 Karl rating. I think it's well crafted. I love the finish. I just wish they would age this a little longer and develop a little bit deeper flavor. Anyway, that's my take. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, I want you to stay safe, peace, and happy pours.